everyone, Discourse here with another video for the Batman Miniatures game. So the open beta for the crew building app on mobile devices has been released, and I've run through this in a previous video, so check out the link if you haven't checked that video out already. But today I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the new equipment that I've noticed that has been added to the game with the release of this open beta. There's a lot of really powerful new equipment for a number of specific models, and even some crews have received additions to their available equipment. Or, for example, in the case of Two-Face, they have finally received a full crew equipment list, so that means there's a lot more stuff to spend your precious funding on. So I want to spotlight some changes that are live as of update 1.2 of the open beta. But of course, this is a beta, and night models have been changing some things here and there, so some of the stuff could change in the future. But with that out of the way, let's dive right in. And starting with a fun one here, the movie version of Black Canary in the Birds of Prey crew has gained the pitch perfect vocals as an equipment option. So this is an entirely new equipment option, and it costs $200, and it gives Black Canary the mixed combat style trait. This is incredible and will let her really get a lot of use out of her ranged attack, because mixed combat style of course allows a model to make an attack with two different weapons. So she'll be able to both get a hit in with her baseball bat and her canary cry during the same activation. And this is particularly good for Black Canary because her canary cry attack is an AoE attack that provides a lot of utility, and it's probably one of the best weapons in the Birds of Prey crew to score pretty birds with. But it doesn't do much damage, and her baseball bat is a handy heavy double stun weapon that can deal an outrageous amount of damage. So it's always hard to justify attacking with Canary Cry instead of the baseball bat. Now, for the cost of $200, you can do both in the same activation. One thing to note about the mixed combat style though is that it does require the use of a special action. So that means she won't be able to use her persuasive trait or her shockwave ability if she does decide to attack with both her weapons. And that is a bit of a sacrifice because both of her traits are really strong. Still, I think this is worth it because it will allow her to be that bit more aggressive and contribute to the fight while dealing a shed load of damage, which is exactly what you want from a model in a Birds of Prey crew. And then sticking with the Birds of Prey theme here, Smash and Grab has been added to their crew list, though you do have to take Harley Quinn into your crew to get access to it. This is a $200 item that will give a henchman's melee attack the Steel trait. This is awesome! Steel is an amazing weapon trait to have because it allows you to look at your opponent's hand of cards and then force them to discard one of those cards. The strength of this trait is twofold. Firstly, you get to see what's in your opponent's hand, and therefore what they're trying to score. This allows you to completely shut down your opponent's opportunities and can greatly inform what type of moves you're going to make in your subsequent turns. Secondly, if they have been trying to set up a specific card, you can deny them access to that card by forcing them to discard it, which is just devastating. One of the reasons I love to play the Jim Carrey Riddler is that he has Steel on his single stun attack, and it's so frustrating to play against. It just gives you so much information and really disrupts the opponent's plans. And because it's a weapon trait, that means that if you get another attack off next turn, well, you get to do the same peekaboo trick again. Birds of Prey have a really limited henchman pool, but the ones they get access to are relatively strong fighters, so this is a really nice equipment item to bring into their crew list. And then finishing up with Birds of Prey, if you take Barbara Gordon now, you can buy a single radio for $200. This is a really nice addition, and it gives you another reason to consider including Oracle in this crew, and it maybe even opens the door for a future Batgirl model that will have the Birds of Prey affiliation. The radio is particularly useful in Birds because they do have some cards that require them to pop down quite a few suspect markers, like I work best alone and in position, so it's definitely something to consider. And speaking of Oracle, she can now be given Watchtower, a $200 upgrade that gives her the Exhaustive Planner trait. This is a nice update because gaining the capacity to prevent your opponent from playing a resource card is a really strong ability, and previously only Batgirl could take this, which didn't make a lot of sense, so it's nice to see that this has been expanded to Oracle too, and it makes her even better than before. Pivoting now to organized crime, and I just want to bring up Carmine Falcone's new equipment called Mob Payroll, which is a $200 equipment item that gives the Corrupt trait. This is a really fun trait when it comes to list building, as it gives the crew the ability to take up to 3 cop henchmen into the list, so it greatly expands the scope of models that you can take when you're building a Falcone-led organized crime crew. Now previously this trait was available if you paid the Flask tax and you took him into your crew, but now you can waive that reputation fee and simply buy some cops. I'm a really big fan of this and it feels super thematic for Falcone, not to mention that there's a lot of really great cop models out there like Harvey Bullock who can add a lot of power to an organized crime list. And then next up we have the Court of Oils, and a really interesting one that I found was for the Court model who can buy Lords of Gotham for $200, and this gives the crew one extra sewer marker. This is a really fun thematic ability that really helps the court out, as they like to move around the map as much as possible to go after their prey. And this also sets up some of their cards, like the resource aspect of the Oils Labyrinth card. I love that this basically cements the court as having been here since the very inception of Gotham, so it feels very fitting that they should know where all the nooks and crannies of the Gotham infrastructure lies. And then coming to Penguin now, he has a huge equipment list. He's gained a lot of additions, but there's two that I wanted to focus on with this video. They're both very expensive, and the first is the Fear Gas dispenser, which gives a henchman the Inspire Fear trait for $600, which is pretty cool. And the other is a prototype freeze ray for $500, which lets a model use the Ice Flash special action, which is basically a guaranteed -1 to a model's defense, as well as the potential to either prevent that model from making efforts or simply have them be slowed down by the ice. Both of these options are very expensive, but they also add a lot of character to a model, and they bring some really impactful dice rolls to a match, and they really do fit the idea that Penguin can get his hands on anything. Next up, Joker has gained a few new equipment items, and I covered those on my last video about the app, but the one I want to focus on here is Joker's Gas, which is a $100 equipment item that gives a henchman the ability to poison an enervating one all other models within 4 inches of that model with a special action. This is a great addition to the Joker list because it means that taking Ace of Spades is no longer a straight up requirement for scoring seasoning the mix. Instead, you can buy this dirt cheap equipment item and start poisoning models from the get-go. This opens up list building, and it's probably something you'll want to buy every game if you plan on taking seasoning the mix, because even if you took Ace of Spades and the Arkham Asylum Joker, you'd still probably want another way of getting poison out there. Remember, the negative modifier to the endurance of a model making a poison roll is proportional to the stacks of poison that you've applied, and once they hit 4 stacks of poison, the damage dealt gets doubled, so it really is a case that as you apply more poison, it gets proportionally stronger. And then the next one is pretty thematic. League of Assassin players can now take Pure Lazarus on Ra's al Ghul for $300. This gives him the regeneration trait, so if you wanted to make him more of an absolute tank than he already is, you can now buy more health regen. This is pretty good even for Ra's, because he is incentivized to really put himself in danger, and though he has a lot of options to stay alive and in the game, even if he goes down and is made a casualty, this trait will still help him stay in the thick of things for that bit longer, and even let you maybe make an effort here and there where you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Then we have the Two-Face crew, who have received an entirely new equipment list, but the ones I wanted to spotlight here are the 2 equipment items that Two-Face himself can take. The first is the Vote for Harvey Dent banner for $200. This is a replication of the old Two-Face equipment from the organized crime crew when he could be taken there, and this increases his Inspire radius by 4 inches. This provides a lot of utility for Two-Face because his crew does typically place a lot of suspect markers to score some of his cards, like Time Bomb. And then they're also very strong at dealing damage at range, so you don't want to clump up his crew too much, meaning that if you take his banner, you can spread out that bit further and still benefit from Inspire. Then he also has an entirely new item, which is the Scarred Silver Dollar, which can be picked up for 200 non-scarred dollars, and it gives him the ability to regen a blood money counter if he gets a kill. This is awesome because Two-Face is a great shooter with his expert marksman trait, and this really incentivizes him to make use of his Tommy gun. Alternatively, it rewards you for flipping tails with his judgment trait beyond just simply scoring his objective card. Blood money is a really useful currency for keeping your gun line mobile with Two-Face, because otherwise he can be pretty static, especially if you've taken the 3 blood rifles, so being able to get free teleports is great. The only tough part will be trying to not hit your spending cap on guns alone and leaving enough funding for you to be able to afford this item. And I've had a look around Soldiers of Fortune. They've got a few cost reductions, including $100 off the Fear Gas dispenser for Scarecrow, which is pretty neat. They already had a very strong equipment list, so I don't think they really needed anything added, but it's good to see that there was a few touch-ups here and there. And then similarly for the Riddler crew, there's been a reduction in price for some items, such as Level Up and Enigma Data Pack. Although the Enigma Data Pack has been changed to give the Bluff trait rather than the Distract trait, which is a bit of a nerf in my opinion. In terms of new equipment items though, Quail's got It's a Dud for $100, which is a really nice cheap equipment item that lets her remove one Riddler marker from the board at the start of her activation. This is an awesome way to move your riddle markers around if they're not positioned in a relevant spot, and now gives players a great reason to take her in a Riddler crew beyond just simply her great gun. They also got a new item, Mirror Games, which gives a model the Magic Tricks trait for $100. This lets the player place a suspect marker down in base contact with an enemy model when that enemy model places one of their own suspect markers, so long as this all occurs within 8 inches of the model with this trait. So basically, it works out to let you place down a suspect marker out of activation, which I'm a really big fan of because the entire Riddler playstyle is focused on trying to tempt the opponent to remove your suspect markers. And what can be more tempting than a fresh new suspect marker? It really helps that this is a super cheap equipment item because I will always value more ways to get suspect markers out for the Riddler. Finally, this isn't an equipment item, I just wanted to show something off that's pretty cool. It's a really nice touch. When you add a piece of equipment to a model, it actually gets added to the card. So that's the best of all the new equipment items I've noticed that have been added in the app. Now this isn't an exhaustive list, these are just the ones that I wanted to highlight, so if you have noticed any new items or changes in the app that I haven't covered in this video, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for joining me. Like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!